Hey friends, Jeremy Tank here with Think Tank Creative, and I'm here. I actually want to show you guys, if you've seen any of my broadcasts, if you've seen a lot of my posts, if you've seen my offices in the past, and this office in particular, if you've seen my YouTube show, Coloring with Jeremy, which is a fun interview style, documentary style show that, I mean, I just have a blast making it. I love showing off local business owners to you guys and sharing them with everybody. But if you see that stuff, you've probably seen this picture on there and you're going, what a weird picture, right? So this is super important in terms of how I convey and how I talk about branding. And the reason it's important and the reason I'm showing this up here is because I'm doing my Think Tank brand workshop coming up on Thursday, September 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. And, you know, we only have slots for 10 people, so it's important that if you're signing up, if you're listening to this, that you understand what those slots are for and what you're actually getting out of it. See, that whole purpose of that workshop is to create a brand positioning statement for you. And brand positioning is sort of like your why statement. It's the emotional core of what you're doing so that everything you do, everything you say, everything that comes from your business can resonate with an emotional value for your customers. And that's what I want to show this off, because what this is a project I did with a couple other posters for Romeo and Juliet. And the concept here was, you know, this is just free form stuff. This isn't for a client. This is just, what can I do to showcase these concepts and showcase these ideas? And the idea here was I was going to create a poster for the Mesa Art Center. And to do that, I had to go researching into where is that community? What is that community like? Who are the people there? What might they enjoy? How could we show them Romeo and Juliet in a way that is different, that stands out, that is dynamic, and fits the community? But what that is basically an alignment of who's there, what they might like to see, how do we stand out to them, and how do we still present something super enjoyable, but that is, you know, not the same old thing. So what I created was this, because that area has a strong Hispanic population, it has a strong Native population there, and a lot of families there, and everybody knows Romeo and Juliet. Frankly, everybody knows Romeo and Juliet. It's a story that's been told in television, movies, countless times. And if you are a fan of the Claire Danes and Leo DiCaprio version, or you're a fan of the one from the, what is it, the 60s maybe? That's the really classical one with all the tights and all of that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a dozen other versions between now and then in major movies, but I also know that same plot is used in TV shows constantly. It's the fallback for just an easy romantic star-crossed lover storyline. So people pull on it all the time, right? The core ideas of it. So what I did was aligning those audiences. I thought, well, what would stand out to them? And I came up with this idea of like the spaghetti western mixed with the Dia de Muertos sort of idea of Romeo and Juliet in a western town, because to me it sort of resonates with the same kinds of emotions and the same kinds of ideas of populations and things. Here's why this matters. If you were the Mesa Art Center, would you put on this sort of play? Maybe. Do you trust a director to build it for you? Because the director is basically your CEO or the president of your company, the guy who owns it. Maybe that's you. And it's the person who has the vision, who is hiring the people to build it out and create the thing in the first place, right? So as the theater, that's probably like a board of directors, and it's probably the people who basically say, look, we want something that creates revenue, we want something that drives commitment, and we want something that brings people in the doors. The director's job is then to say, okay, here's my vision for that. And as a CEO or a president, it's your job to drive the brand. It's your job to say, here's my vision for the brand. And then after that, it becomes, okay, who can help me build that vision? In this case, if we're doing this production, we're going to get a completely different carpentry crew to build some of this stuff than a traditional set. traditional Romeo and Juliet, old-timey Shakespeare set, right? We're going to get a different type of makeup crew if they're going to do Dia de Muertos kind of makeup here. We're going to get a different design aesthetic. So set designers and everything, if we start going with a really strong palette and really traditional kind of Southwest garb. Everybody on board is different than if it was running a different type of project. So, you know, once you have the vision, once you're owning that vision and kind of knowing what to do with it, everything that follows, you have to get the right people on board, because they have to say, okay, I see your vision and I can help you build it. And then you can figure out how you're going to build it and then what that ends up looking like. By the time it hits this stage, this is just pure marketing. This is just built on all of the decisions that came before it about what the brand is and who it's appealing to and how to do that. So this ends up just being one executable, but the vision that lies with that director when he was hired to create this sort of idea, that's the brand positioning. That's the guy saying, look, I've got an idea, it's different, I think it'll really grab attention, and this is what we're going to do with it. And I'll just tell you, I created 3 different Romeo and Juliet posters. This one being, you know, the Southwest sort of style, the spaghetti Western kind of style, and I did a lot of research on spaghetti Westerns. This is actually an homage to a few different spaghetti Western posters that are fun, and I just really enjoy them. I did a one that was a San Diego beach style kind of poster, Romeo and Juliet at the Shakespearean Globe Theater down there. I did another poster that was like it was like an 80s style Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure one, and that's super fun, but that's a whole different audience. That's like a La Mesa kind of, not La Mesa, maybe a La Mesa kind of audience. It's, you know, it's a little bit more hip. It's people who are interested. But the thing is that the directors of each of those would not have the same vision. Just like a company that produces, you know, if it's Lyft or Uber, I know super strong opinions on both sides, but those are essentially the same types of services, and the branding is very different. How they approach things is very different. How they treat things, their core values are very different. It's the same thing here, because all 3 of my posters are Romeo and Juliet. This is the only one that has this feel to it. And when you're standing outside the theater and you feel this feel, you either say, yes, that's for me, I really want to see that production, or you say, not really, right? That's cool. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Well, that's how businesses use branding to start differentiating themselves and standing out and appealing to the right customers for them. It's an alignment thing. When this appeals to you, it's designed to appeal to you. We call this intent-based branding. And it's intent-based because the intent is to get you interested. The intent is to literally say, you're my audience. I see what you like, and I want to help you, like, by making my brand something that you would like. It's very intentional, and ultimately the purpose, the intent behind it is to drive engagement, to drive sales, right? So what we're doing is actually creating the idea that you can connect intentionally with the people by looking and feeling and sounding a certain way, but we also want it to be true to whatever you're presenting. And in this case, it's still very true to Romeo and Juliet. It's still very true to the vision we had at the outset for this. And it's still very authentic to what it is. And the same with the other 2 posters. If you guys want to see the other 2 posters, go ahead and leave it in messages or something, and I would be happy to do another one of these videos and showcase one of the other ones. I really enjoy this sort of work. This is actually my fine art here. I illustrated the other 2 posters as well because I enjoy that. I studied a lot of different types of artwork. I grew up studying fine art through high school. In a very, very concentrated way. I learned to emulate different artistic styles. I learned to how to appreciate the fine art side of these things, and I carry those skills through branding, through design, through everything I do, and the mindset is that this sort of thing appeals to people on an emotional level. Art is what is used to influence emotions and influence feelings. Every time I think of dance or any type of music, these are artists, right? So what we're doing here is a type of brand art that connects with people. But the other thing we're doing here, you know, if you're a fan of Donald Miller and StoryBrand, he talks about the journey, how the customer is the protagonist, and how the brand is the mentor or the older person kind of coming in to guide them on the journey and help them fulfill their journey. Well, if everything you're doing is a movie or a TV show, then what is the style of that movie, right? How are you presenting it? Are you a CSI or are you Alf? There's a throwback for some of you. And I don't care if you call yourself Gordon Shumway, you kind of look and feel a certain way as you do things. And what you present to the world is that story then. But if you don't have a certain look, a certain feel, if you as the driver of your brand, the CEO, the owner, don't understand where you want to take things in the future, the director here would have to say, look, I want to do a spaghetti western, southwestern, Dia de Muertos, like small western town. I want it to be a little bit of Unforgiven mixed in with Romeo and Juliet and something kind of angsty and maybe a bit gritty. It's certainly, you know, here we have an African-American protagonist here wearing a white hat that shows he's the hero of the story. You know, that's sort of conflict building, right? There's a contrast in concept and what we're doing here. His white hat, her white face. There's contrast. It draws interest and builds it. Now, if the theater had said, we are not doing that, that is way out of the bounds of what we're comfortable with, then it just veers back towards the same, the normal, the standard. It doesn't break out. It doesn't do anything that is exciting. So before you can tell the story, it really helps to have that branding vision. And that's really up to the director, right? The director of the brand, and that is the CEO, the president, the owner, sometimes the board if they are super strong and super willful in what they want to see. But if you don't have this, if you don't have the core of what the emotional feeling is that you're going for, the style, the genre, whatever you want to call it for your brand, then without that branding, that thing that sets you apart, the thing that makes you unique, the thing that's fun and interesting, then you end up being like, you end up falling into the standard of norm of disappearing. And a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, a lot of businesses fall into that, right? They are just doing business day after day. That's fine. They have a few different customers, but nothing really stands out. Nothing really is exciting. Nothing is interesting. It's just the same old, same old. And what happens, we've seen it, right? When you have 2 or 3 of those guys stacked up, it starts to become, well, he just dropped his prices, he's running a sale. And then the next guy has to drop his prices or run a sale. The next guy has to drop his. It's a race to the bottom because nothing is standing out. Nothing is exceptional. Nothing is interesting. So what I'm doing here is trying to educate you guys on the purpose of branding. It's not just logos. It's not just the idea of putting something out there and saying, okay, well, I'm going to be the new Apple. It really is this heartfelt core that drives a feeling of something that makes you stand out so that you can start getting the value that you're worth. And that is really the core of the Think Tank Brand Workshop. So if you're that business owner, if you have an idea of what you're trying to do, but you can't quite get out that feeling part of it, if you don't really know what your genre is, what your style is, if you can't really tell your story because you don't have a perspective to tell it from, that's what this workshop is about. And the 10 spots there are all for business owners and business leaders here because you guys know the Lynnwood, Everett, Snohomish County, Kirkland, Kenmore, Bothell, Shoreline kind of area. You guys get the people that are here. So when a business, one of the people there stand up and say, okay, here's what I do, here's who I serve, here's what I sell, we can start analyzing that with a real context and it becomes a true think tank that is using my design sprint process, which I'll probably go over here in another video because I've gotten a couple requests saying, hey, what is that? What does that look like? So I'll probably create one of these coming up. But using that design sprint process to create something for each of you, okay? This is very customized, focus group style, think tank style, design sprint style, brand positioning. I'm not saying it's the end all be all result here, okay? But getting this from this workshop, just 2 hours of your time, is so powerful because there's no other way you're going to get this kind of thing. And that's about it. So I just want to recap. It's $400 to sign up. If you sign up before the end of Labor Day, it's $250. It takes place at InSpark in Lynnwood, InSpark Coworking in Lynnwood, run by Tracy Warren. She runs a fantastic community there. It's very low buy-in. It is a great place to to just sit and get feedback from the creative people there and the business people there, or sit in quiet in one of their cubicles or one of their office spaces. I really love that workspace. It's great for meetings like this, and the people are just fantastic. And that's why we're choosing InSpark Coworking in Lynnwood. So again, if any of this doesn't make sense to you, if any of this is sort of confusing, or you don't understand what I'm saying, or I talk too fast, you know, I used to stutter as a child, so I tend to push through things very quickly to make sure it gets out of my mouth, and then I need to pause and choose the right words, right? It's a difference between reacting to the situation, like a camera on, and building the intention of what we're trying to convey. And that's what I want to help you with your brand. If you're the kind of business owner who wants that kind of help, who values the think tank approach, who values the feedback of a business community to kind of figure out what's actually important for you and for the people working with you, or the people you're trying to sell to or service, then this is probably a good workshop for you. It's only $400, and that is a drop in the bucket for business. Really, when you figure that when you come out of this, you're gonna have a brand positioning statement that is focus grouped, that is powerful, that will basically change your marketing and messaging and, you know, your look and your feel, right? If you came out of the brand positioning and you said, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start something that's colorful and bright and energetic and sort of anime-like, it's going to not look like this. This definitely has brand attributes that are not that direction. This is gritty, this is dark, this is limited palette, this is influential, right? So those are the sorts of things that we're going to work with for you. We're going to work on words that are meaningful and powerful for you and get you through this workshop. Again, Thursday, September 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. It is $400. I highly recommend it if you are a local business owner and you don't have brand positioning. If you don't have the emotional why that connects with your audience, connects with customers, hopefully this video gives you an idea of what that means and the impact of it. So thank you, friends. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a fantastic day, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the next video. Take care.